I want to welcome you to this, the Ideas Presser for October 29, 2024. I am Paige Forman, and today I am joined by the political leader of IDEA, Dr. Denise Sawyer-Anders. And today we will be going through a few issues that are of importance to both the folks in Tobago as well as in Tobago. Firstly, we will address the disrespect to women that is being meted out by male political leaders in our society. An issue that I like to term leadership abuse against women. We will also take a look at the recently concluded Tobago October Carnival and we'll be celebrating some of the successes and addressing a few of the gaps that need to be considered as we continue to develop this unique event here in Tobago. We will also be addressing the issue of the Tobago autonomy days. Should they be accepted? Should they be rejected? And we will note the obvious absence from this discussion of the Chief Secretary of the Tobago World Service. But let us start with the issue of the apparent disrespect that women face at the hands of male political leaders. Recently, there was much to do about the Chief Secretary's remark at a Diwali opening celebration here in Tobago, where it was reported that he assigned blame to Tobago mothers for the rising crime in Tobago. This drew up a barrage of responses from utter disgust for the Chief Secretary's insensitive words to defense for his statements. We at the IDA chose not to join the fracas at that time, but to give the Chief Secretary the benefit of the doubt to review his statements into the context of the entire speech, and before making any pronouncement on the matter. But let me say to you that the Chief Secretary's comments have unearthed an even growing graver issue. And that is the issue of a culture of misogyny and disrespect towards women displayed by some of our nation's male leaders. The recent comments by the Chief Secretary, which initially singled out Tobago mothers and seemed to assign blame to them for the rise in crime, reflected a far deeper troubling truth. One that is compounded by similar statements from other high-ranking political officials. So on behalf of the women of the island and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, I stand before you today, demanding accountability and greater respect from our male political leaders towards the women of this nation. We are also demanding a shift in our political culture towards one of genuine value and genuinely valuing all our citizens. This abusive rhetoric from some of our nation's most visible male leaders has gone on for far too long. And we have watched as these leaders blame women for societal challenges, shifting accountability away from themselves, and reinforcing the harmful dynamic of abuse and neglect. This behavior, I must say, is unacceptable and must be named for what it is. Unadulterated leadership abuse. But let's remind ourselves of how we got to this position. In 2017, our own Prime Minister, Dr. Waller, stated that women need to choose better partners as a way to address domestic violence, implying that the problem lies solely with women's choices rather than the responsibility of perpetrators or the need for systemic solutions. This harmful victim blaming rhetoric not only disregards the complex social factors surrounding abuse, but demeans women across the village. When addressing concerns about domestic violence, the National Security Minister, Mr. Fitzgerald, suggested that women should simply protect themselves, failing to acknowledge the government's duty to protect vulnerable populations. This statement reflects not only a lack of empathy, but a fundamental misunderstanding of the government's role in safeguarding its people. Even recently in Parliament, the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Minister Stuart Young, was caught on an open mic making inappropriate comments about the opposition leader. This revealed a startling lack of respect for women leadership. His vulgar language and dismissive tone conveyed a message that women, even in leadership, will fair game for public shaming, a behavior that is entirely incompatible with effective, or incompatible, I should say, with effective governance. Women are not fair. We are equal partners in the journey of managing Trinidad and Tobago. Even right here in Tobago, Minority Leader Kelvin Morris publicly attacked the Education Secretary, Ms. Risha Hackey, regarding her appearance and accusing her of focusing more on fashion than her duty, when she should have been reprimanded or at least spoken about because of her incompetence towards her duties. Instead, her professional contribution was reduced to just how she looked and dressed. Most recently, our Chief Secretary took the offensive stand of singling out Tobago mothers for Tobago's rising crime, claiming that women are enjoying the fruits of criminal activities. And instead of addressing the societal conditions or the policy failings that contributed to crime, he chose to shame mothers, sending a message of blame to those who oftentimes are the most vulnerable in society. Whether this was intentionally intended or not, it created a harmful and damaging impact. My dear citizens of Trinidad, particularly our women, this behavior that we have seen over time by leading male politicians reflects a pattern of abusive relationships. Just as we would counsel individuals to stay away from harmful relationships, not to stay there, we urge them to recognize that the cycle of abuse from leaders must end. Abuse is not only physical, it is verbal, psychological, emotional, and I would dare want to say in this case, it seems to be institutional. And make no mistake, these words from our leaders who should be able to trust, have left many feeling disrespected, unheard, and marginalized. To our fathers, brothers, and sons, we ask that you stand with us to protect women in our lives. Stand up for your mothers, for your daughters, your sisters, and your wives, and reject any leadership that abuses and denigrates women. When these leaders blame and demean women, they reveal, ironically, their own insecurities, as well as their inability to lead. They fail to see women as partners, and this disqualifies them from guiding us towards a better future. Ladies and gentlemen, this regime is not just police. It has a real negative impact and is a real threat to our nation. Abuse in any form erodes the very foundation of trust between a government and its people. We deserve leaders who uplift all citizens rather than undermine. We deserve leaders who empower us to face circumstances for us and not find fault with the vulnerable who they are charged to protect. So let us be clear. No apology. No next pop-up and kiss. No empty gestures can undo the damage caused by abusive leadership. It is time for us to break free of this battle. We can and we must seek healthier, more inclusive relationships for future and for not just for ourselves, but also for our children. The Innovative Democratic Alliance, under the leadership of Dr. Bruce and stands firmly with the women of Trinidad. We stand with our fathers, brothers, sons, with our men who believe in a leadership that serves, respects, and values all citizens, men and women alike. We are ready to work with all those who are willing to forge a future free of the grip of abusive relationship. A future rooted in empathy, accountability, respect, and integrity. So together, let us reject the patterns of abuse and hold our leaders to the standard the nation is in. Trinidad and Tobago, we have the courage to do such. So it's time for us to see the change that is needed to bring this about. I thank you, and I open the floor to any questions. I would now like to turn my attention to the October Carnival. The Tobago Carnival season has just begun. And we at the IEA want to commend the creative excellence and cultural vibrancy in this experience. The successes are many. We saw increased visitor numbers that boost local businesses from hotels, guest houses, and bed and breakfast populations to car rentals, groceries, and eateries, all reporting higher engagement. We congratulate our new soca and calypso monarchs, Jackie Thomas and Nicola Dillon, for the performances that will be electrifying, and celebrating Tobago's true talent and culture. We also want to applaud Tobago's first female head for raising the standard of the competition this year. So to Ms. Candace Robinson, kudos to you. The Carnival's visual and music showcase have reaffirmed Tobago's unique cultural standing in the group. However, while we celebrate these successes and we applaud these achievements, we must also address the significant operational gaps that have been observed and that have hindered the full potential of the October Carnival. This is not meant to be empty criticism, but to be an objective critique as we look to build on the successes we have experienced in this year's celebration to ensure that the future hosting of October Carnival 2020 grows from strength to strength. We observe and stakeholders and patrons have both valid concerns. One being premature shutdown of the night mass at midnight, and it will continue to go on until 2 p.m. This left many revelers disappointed and limited the festival's economic and experiential scope. Furthermore, late marketing efforts meant banners went up at very short notice and therefore undercut the potential to build momentum locally and internationally. Competing events on the same night created from dispersion, while attending the food festival found themselves, while patrons attending the food festival found themselves with completed activities, 10 until late in the evening. Moreover, there was an urgent need for transparency in the grants which shall process the banks. The lack of clear criteria and resulting inequities left many landlords without sufficient funding, with some having to give away the cost because of the prices. The stakeholders have expressed further concerns about not receiving payments owed from past effects, and this can significantly jeopardize confidence in the system and risk undermining the enthusiasm of contributors for future celebrations. The innovative Democratic Alliance therefore calls on the Tobago House of Assembly to initiate comprehensive stakeholder consultation within next week, a proactive planning approach that anticipates some of these challenges that have been highlighted is critical, and an immediate action must be taken to ensure that Carnival 2025 avoids these pitfalls. This event, our October Carnival, holds tremendous economic and cultural promises. Therefore, it must be managed with foresight, transparency, and steadfast commitments to its supporters and stakeholders. To all involved, let me reiterate sincere congratulations, and we acknowledge and congratulations extended for the release of the goods for the next 2 years. This means we are ahead of the game and started to plan for these activities. So let us use it. Again, congratulations to you. Today, October. Thank you. If there are no questions, I would like to call to the podium Dr. Dean Silver and us, all of us, will be talking from here. It's good. It's good. Dr.
Thank you for and let me begin by extending my congratulations to all those who were involved in the Carnival 2024, Tobago Carnival 2024, and certainly I again echo that we hope forward plan will begin now so that we can afford the performance next year. And so today, the trending topic with the government is on Tobago's autonomy, an effort to resuscitate a dying conversation. Yesterday, it was on constitutional reform, conversation that died a sudden death after the recent submission of the report. And tomorrow, the conversations will be on elections. In connecting the dots, begs the question, can this government ever be taken seriously? The assumption that our citizens are politically stunted in their views is far from the truth. The people are quite discerning and see what it is, and see it for what it is. classic and predictable political gimmick. The playbook is played out. It's time for serious business to take this country forward. So today, as we discuss the current bills on Tobago's autonomy, we cannot ignore the legacy of neglect and institutional abuse that Tobago has endured for decades. Because of how we are perceived in this relationship between our republic. Despite Tobagonians having held and holding the highest offices in the country, President, Chief Justice, Prime Minister, President of the Senate, and heads of prominent cultural institutions like Tobago and Tobago, we still find Tobago House of Assembly being treated as if our people lack competence to make impactful decisions. Central government should also note that it is the right of Tobagonians to choose and unchoose leadership of the island and should not be subjected to the whims of any central government to determine how we govern ourselves in ways that will allow us to truly express ourselves as a people. It is time to address this troubling disconnect and call out the irony, or perhaps even the oxymoron, of a system that trusts Tobagonians to lead a nation but resist giving us the autonomy to govern ourselves. The misconception, though, is that we can separate the issue of constitutional reform from the issue of Tobago's autonomy. But it is critical for the future of the nation if we understand that the changes must go hand in hand. In January of this year, I called on the Chief Secretary to have consultations with the people of Tobago on their autonomy bills, given the last set of consultations were 10 years out, on the proposed amendments to the Tobago bills. Since then, we have had new adults, others have had additional experiences that can add value to the discussion on the bills. That call was ignored, and the current administration chose not to meet with Tobagonians on the matter. Being one not to sit on our laurels and complain, we accompanied Dr. Vanessa James to meet with the people across Tobago and have meaningful conversations about what they wanted to see as a set of rights in the Constitution. The difference in this approach, I have been on several consultations on autonomy and whatnot before, but the difference in this approach ensured that the people had the opportunity to speak individually and express themselves fully, rather than a set of ideas being taken to them and asking for their endorsement. After meeting with 12 communities and over 120 persons, we were convinced from those conversations the current construct of the Tobago bills will not meet the requests of communities and the requirements of Tobago to see true development in our lifetime. The bills must therefore be rejected. The first fundamental flaw in these bills is that they don't address the root issue, almost no oversight. This makes Trinidad's government more akin to a dictatorship than a democracy. It is similar in Tobago too, with the Executive Council, a zero oversight that is in place. As long as that power structure remains, Tobago's ability to grow and thrive will be limited by the whims of those at the top. We saw this play out in the budgets over many years, where it is said Tobagonians will be given this or that without having meaningful conversations on what Tobago and see our development as. Did anyone consult you on the new proposed projects in the budget that central government is coming to do? How many of you are privy to the design of the new airport, or even know the percentage of businesses from Tobago that will have the opportunity of having terminal shops? But this issue is bigger than Tobago. For true governance and autonomy, we need a comprehensive overhaul of the Constitution, one that establishes real checks and balances. We need an empowered, democratically elected Senate that can hold the cabinet accountable, a body that represents the people and not just the power brokers. Without this reform, any changes made to Tobago's governance will be superficial and vested. You know, I listened to the last budget debate, speeches from the appointed Senate. And there's only one conclusion we come to, that they are naturally just another political party machinery in action. All of them towing party lines, leaving the legitimate concerns of the people behind. Without the kind of reform that focuses the Senate to provide the oversight to the cabinet, any changes made to Tobago's local governance structure will be mere window dressing. Trying to build autonomy on a broken foundation is like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The ship may look different, but it's still sinking. Of course, you know, here in Gypsy song in the head, Captain. What we are asking for is constitutional overhaul, not just for Tobago's sake, but for the good of Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. Another critical shortcoming of the bills is their failure to enshrine a Bill of Rights for Tobago. Rather than creating a solid foundation of constitutionally guaranteed rights that would allow Tobago to govern itself, these bills simply offer superficial adjustments to the existing Tobago House of Assembly structure and act. What Tobago truly needs is a set of rights protected by the Constitution, a framework that empowers our people to develop our own legislative structure with appropriate oversight, to manage ourselves, own our resources, secure funding independently, and have a binding say in national laws that impact us. Imagine a system where Tobago can confidently plan and execute its future without the looming threat of policy reversals from Trinidad or even secret legislation passed that allows for encroachment on the authority of the THU and undermine the autonomy of the island. A true Bill of Rights for Tobago will ensure that our ability to govern ourselves cannot simply be taken away at the whim of central government. Think of it as the bedrock on which we can build a self-sufficient, prosperous future where we have the authority to shape our legislative framework along with our economic and social policies independently. Without these protections enshrined in the highest law of the land, any so-called autonomy will always be vulnerable, and Tobago's development will remain at the mercy of another's authority. Let's talk about democracy and self-determination. True democracy doesn't only happen at the national or regional levels. It begins within our communities where ordinary citizens have a say in their development. The current system concentrates too much power at the top, leaving communities across Tobago with little voice or influence over their own futures. To build a responsive and resilient governance system, we need constitutional guarantees that empower local communities in Tobago. These communities should have real authority in decisions that affect their daily lives, from infrastructure projects to cultural initiatives. When our communities are empowered, we build a stronger Tobago from the ground up, one that can better withstand challenges and pursue a shared vision for progress. In fact, local government in Trinidad also deserve to have their own bill of rights. Enacting these is what is needed to begin stemming the crime in the country. It's time to do things differently. One of the most pressing issues with these bills is their failure to address equitable resource distribution between Tobago and Trinidad. That has been a bone of contention for many, many years. Tobago's financial future cannot depend solely on budget allocations from Trinidad. Such an arrangement leaves Tobago vulnerable to political shifts and cuts in funding. What we need are clear, constitutionally enshrined principles and formulas for how financial resources are to be shared between the two islands in a fair and predictable manner. Firstly, we advocate that the recurrent budget, that is the day-to-day operating funds for government services, that it is shared on a strict per capita basis. What does that mean? It means every citizen, whether from Tobago or Trinidad or Charlottesville or Togo or Charlottesville, San Fernando or Concord, every citizen deserves an equal share of funding for public service or towards public service. This approach eliminates any room for political favoritism or discrimination. Now, it would mean that the government will have to apply accurate census numbers when creating an annual budget, and not magical numbers that appear and disappear, as what we have seen in this last budget bill. Next, for the development budget, the funds allocated for major infrastructure, economic growth initiatives, and community projects, that's where we need a blended reform. We propose taking the population share and the geographic area share, averaging them, and using that formula for allocating the national development budget between Tobago and Trinidad. So what is unique about this approach is that it recognizes that Tobago, with its smaller population but larger geographic area, can ensure that its unique development needs are satisfied by going beyond a simple per capita calculation. By blending in population and geographic factors, you arrive at a more equitable distribution that accounts for Tobago's distinct circumstances. So with this formula, quibbling about 4.03%, 5%, 6.8%, or even a diminishing development budget will be a conversation of the past, never to return. Since the calculations will be based on an actual actual and up-to-date population census, which not only benefits Tobago, but the whole country. As the population grows, we don't have to go back to fight for new percentages of anybody. The numbers will autocorrect. The government itself will be held to a higher standard of budgeting rather than pulling numbers from thin air to fool the people. There will be no need for a dispute resolution commission, since we will have a constitutionally protected formula along with the elected Senate, which will be actively working on behalf of the people to ensure fair and equitable distribution of resources across the country. Within Tobago, these same principles should guide the distribution of resources to local communities across the island. Every community must have a guaranteed stake in how funds are allocated and invested, so that no single area is left out of Tobago's growth. The Tobago government shouldn't be the sole arbiter. Local communities must have a guaranteed stake in how these resources are used and invested. To secure these principles, we need the allocation formulas embedded in the Constitution, making them untouchable by political forces. They become fundamental rights that the people of Tobago can infer. A critical component of true financial autonomy is the right to borrow funds. Tobago should not have to go begging to Trinidad every time we need funding for major projects. The Constitution must give Tobago the ability to responsibly manage its own finances and secure loans as needed within limits. By establishing these clear, equitable principles for resource distribution and financial management, we can start to break the cycle of Tobago's dependence and vulnerability on central government. The people of Tobago will then have the tools to chart our own destiny without being beholden to the political calculations of central government. Of course, the details will need to be carefully worked through, with inclusive dialogue and negotiation. But the core principles, capital recurrent funding, development funding based on population and geography, financial autonomy, and community-level resource allocations provide a strong foundation for a more just and sustainable system. This is the kind of innovation which will lead to transformative change that the people of Tobago deserve. Anything less than this level of constitutional reform will leave Tobago perpetually disadvantaged and unable to fulfill its true potential. The time has come to demand better. We deserve a framework that respects, uplifts, and empowers us. The current autonomy bills don't do that. They offer token changes while failing to address the structural issues that hold Tobago back. We are asking for a comprehensive overhaul of Trinidad and Tobago's constitution, a genuine bill of rights for Tobago, and real community empowerment that gives power back to the people. So let's open our eyes and recognize that what is being offered is not real autonomy, but the illusion of it. We can do better for ourselves and for future generations, but we must have the courage to demand better and work towards it. Tobagonians, we know that accepting anything less than these essential reforms will keep us perpetually structurally disadvantaged, unable to realize your full potential. These bills in their current form are not the answer. What we are asking for isn't unreasonable or radical, it's simply fair. Per capita recurrent funding, an equitable development budget based on population and geography, financial autonomy, community empowerment, and constitutionally guaranteed rights. These are the building blocks of a truly autonomous Tobago blossoming within the twin island republic of Trinidad and Tobago. It is time to stop being used as a political football with every election. Local elections coming, we talk about local government reform. General and THA elections coming, time to checkmate the opposition on whether they will support the Tobago bills so it can be used, the decisions can be used to blame them for Tobago not getting the autonomy. Classic predictable tactics. Every time, every administration. This is the time for us to be wise to believe. And in our wise actions, the whole country will benefit from a better governance structure. We know all too well the dangers of unchecked power and abusive governance, where blame is constantly shifted and responsibilities are ignored. Like an abusive partner, some of our leaders redirect accountability, blaming the people, our mothers, our communities, instead of owning up to their own failings. This is a classic hallmark of abusive relationship: manipulation, blame shifting, control. For too long, we have allowed central government to dominate, but it's time to say enough. In the words of James Manson, the essence of government is power, and power, lodged as it must be in human hands, will ever be liable to abuse. We need structures that prevent this abuse, that protect our citizens in Tobago and Trinidad alike. So let us not be swayed by hollow gestures or promises. We cannot settle for partial solutions or half measures. We are being told, take little and little, hope for more tomorrow. No longer that works. We deserve a system that respects and empowers us, a system that upholds fairness, dignity, and opportunity for all. Together, let's demand the leadership and constitutional reforms that will truly serve Tobago's interests and lay the foundation for a prosperous future on this island. So let's make a commitment to it. Let's not settle for rearranging the deck chairs on the single ship. The idea is ready to work with all stakeholders to forge a path that builds a resilient, democratic, and just future for Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, the stakes are high. We urge the Parliament to reject these bills and to commit to a comprehensive constitutional reform that our people need and deserve. Let us create a Trinidad and Tobago that truly serves its people, empowers its communities, and secures its future. Any questions? So I move on to our last area. The decision by the Secretary Parliament to miss the critical Tobago autonomy debate in favor of attending the International Congress on emotional intelligence in Mexico City. It's a stark and troubling application of leadership. While this training may have been good for him as a leader, one has to wonder about his misguided priorities at this time. As Tobago stands at a crossroads in determining its future self-governance, it is paramount that its elected leaders prioritize the needs and aspirations of their people above all else. By choosing an international event over the most crucial political discussion of his term, Chief Secretary not only disregarded his duty, but demonstrated a lack of commitment to the island's autonomy efforts. Furthermore, it is shocking that he did not personally lead the autonomy motion, nor engage the people of Tobago in fresh consultations, and as a result, actually delegated this responsibility to the minority leader. This absence of leadership and failure to directly champion the cause raises serious questions about his intentions and priorities. Instead of taking charge, he left a power vacuum, essentially surrendering his mandate to represent the people. People of Tobago deserve a better leader. They deserve a leader who is present, accountable, and committed to this island's future. One who understands that leadership is not about symbolic gestures abroad, but about making real, impactful decisions at home. After 3 years in office, one would think that he could get his priorities right. The Chief Secretary's actions suggest that he's willing to forfeit Tobago's chance for self-governance for the allure of international recognition, revealing a troubling disconnect between his responsibilities and his ambitions. Or, perhaps like the Prime Minister, he too is choosing his successor for the next election. So, any questions? Let me take this opportunity to thank you, the media, for always being here to capture the words and messages that we're delivering to the people of Tobago from innovative democratic alliance. I also thank our viewing and listening audience for being there and allowing yourselves to be educated and to be aware of issues within our island and the country at this time. Thanks.